So Caroline, I actually want to lead with you because this was actually my first question today is who's got a new job? Because this is always an upbeat way to start a conversation like this. For those who are in between, it's always good to know that there is another job out there. There is a first day in your future. So tell us about how that came about, because I know this is, if I recall, I mean, this is kind of your wheelhouse a little bit, but perhaps a little bit more progressive than what you've been doing
this
before.
is well, after near the beginning of COVID, the position I'd been in sales in the U.S. manufacturing custom plastic injection molding for about a dozen years, and with two companies, the second bought the first, so I hadn't been job hunting for a long time, and that for a variety of reasons, they were downsizing, different things happened, but I got a severance package, and so I had time to look around, and I tried to make business out of my art, which is some of my class art behind me. But I ended up at I wanted to change industries, and I ended up at an enterprise software company in a business development position out of Palo Alto, and that was a fascinating experience. It was one of those things where the position was this big and I'm this big in terms of experience and everything. And I also saw the handwriting was on the wall. What they had been doing was no longer working, and they didn't want to hear it. It's one of those things, you do more of the same thing you did before that was successful, even if it's not working.
Right. The sunk cost fallacy, right?
Yes, and I remembered one of the new marketing people told me, oh, Jeffrey Moore's crossing the chasm. Well, they're in the chasm.
Right. And they've been in the chasm forever, right?
Right. And I tried to talk to a couple of the executives about that, and they never heard of Jeffrey Moore's crossing the chasm. And they're in Palo Alto. And I'm like, but it's software, it's not hardware. So I was like, oh, okay. So, and to make a long story short, my position, they decided I was not a fit, but I got a trip to Barcelona out of it before that.
That's good.
So in February, I was once more without a job and a little, because I didn't have a lot of cushion. And honestly, my situation was that as soon as I turned LinkedIn on in terms of letting recruiters know I was actively interviewing, I started to have recruiters contacting me. And within 2 weeks, I was starting to interview at two positions in two very different industries that I wouldn't have thought of. And the second one ended up being this, I'm working for Trina Solar, which is the second largest solar panel manufacturer on the planet, for their US division, in a new position, but it's in sales. They're growing their US contingent.
Right.
It's the first time I've worked for a company that's not American owned. So it's interesting.
Right.
But I'm really enjoying it, and I'm earning more money than before. And it was, a situation. I've sold into the solar industry before in custom manufacturing, so I knew about their industry, but they hired me for, it's an inside sales support position, but it's one of the few positions you could get in solar that doesn't require you having already been in the industry. It's one of those industries that if you don't have industry experience, they kind of like not interested.
Right. So I really want you to unpack this, because what you're describing is a question that I get a lot from people who are on the other side of that equation, where, I mean, you're now in the job, you can actually kind of reconstruct the threads that got you into it and why they approached you, why this works, why your experience is a fit for the situation. So I'd love to kind of hear this kind of Monday morning quarterback perspective of how you got approached. Maybe, I don't know if you had a chance to talk to the recruiter about like, well, why me? Right. I mean, to kind of get a sense of why you're appropriate for this, and why you kind of, understandably, why you kind of missed it, why it was like not on your radar.
That's interesting because I had sold into multiple industries, I think. And again, I didn't have exactly that conversation. It was an outside recruiting firm, and the recruiter I was working with she was top shelf. I mean, I can't express how different the experience is when you're dealing with a recruiter who follows up, who knows this, who knows the game, who does it well, and really understands has a connection with the hiring manager and is really connecting with the people. I mean, she would text me updates, she would keep me apprised because they had certain things that took longer. Like there was a period where she said, well, they're going to offer you the position, and then 2 weeks went by and I'm like, and that can be nerve-wracking. But and I had that kind of relationship with a couple of other recruiters before I got into the software thing, because I was looking at different industries. But I think what you're saying is cross-industry. I was involved with US manufacturing. So I think that helped. And the fact that I had Salesforce experience, which to my mind doesn't mean anything because I'd worked with 2 other CRMs for a dozen years, but they were doing more deployments with Salesforce and they're still like not really using it. But anyway, I mean, they're using it for reporting purposes company-wide, but they're not using it as a CRM, which is what
they're really not selling with it.
And it's interesting, but I can understand, I've talked to a lot of the people that it doesn't really, it's not structured for their industry. So let me just put it that way.
Okay.
It's difficult to say, but from your perspective, I think if you get connected to good recruiters, that can be enormously helpful.
Yeah.
And I had already the year before really improved my LinkedIn profile and updated my resume. So I'd done the hard work on that.
Yeah.
And so I can speak to like Holly and Associates here in the Bay Area. I've got a gal with them who consults on LinkedIn, and they do some free programs. They're very good at hitting the high points, what you need to do,
right?
That kind of stuff. And
yeah, because when you turned on your profile, when you turned on your open to recruiters, they hit you, right?
Right, because I had enough stuff in my headline above, because you got 4 lines there. You can put a lot of buzzwords, a lot of things that you're offering or you want to offer, and then your about section. And
so my tutorial on this would be, first of all, you got 220 characters in your headline.
Exactly.
Right. And you want to
use it all.
Right. For those of you who are in a position, I would advise you to never put your job title in your headline. You always want, because you don't want to be limited to that in search, right? You want to put 3, 4 actual roles with some descriptors. Usually for most of the people on this call, the word senior should be in there at some point to denote the level of experience and the level of value that you bring to the table. But to put 3 or 4 roles that you do, so that you're going to get searched, you're going to get found by people who are searching for those roles, and be aspirational about it. Don't if you're a director level looking to go to a VP level, don't put director, because that's what they're going to be searching for. So you may want to even just put VP on the chance that they're going to search for you, even though you don't have that in your resume. You have the experience, you have the leverage to be in that kind of a role. So great experience. And how's it going? How long have you been there now?
It's 3.5 months, going on 4 months. So, and I've already been to North Carolina with them to a sales meeting in May. So I started in mid-April. So I got to meet everybody in person, because I'm working remotely, even though their offices are here in Fremont, in the same town I'm at. Most people are not coming to the office, and a lot of the people I work with every day are elsewhere.
Yeah. Just because it's in the air a lot. So is there a return to the office, return to work plan going on there? Or are they kind of trickling people back in?
Interestingly, not really, because the nature of, I'm dealing with people who live in Southern California, in Florida, in New York, as part of my team. So because it's a sales organization, The finance and legal and folks, they go into the office occasionally and they're here. But our CEO actually lives in Vancouver, Washington. And so he comes down but for instance, we're doing a major trade show, what used to be Solar Power International, which is now RE Plus, in Las Vegas in 4 weeks.
Right.
So, and we have a 40 by 50 foot booth there. So it's the huge roadshow thing.
Right. Very cool.
Very, very Hollywood.
So I want to open it up to the group. See if there are any questions that people have for Caroline here about this experience, and to jump in and kind of share what's going on with you as well.
Hey, Caroline, this is Katie. I have a question. So
Yes.
you did the open to work.
Oh, no.
No.
I never put that around ever. Psychologically, it's a no.
Thank you, Caroline.
That's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I've been in sales my whole career. I got a sales job right out of art school. I found I could sell, and I went into medical device. I've done different industries. That psychologically is a deal killer. It's in the settings below your name and the title. I don't, John, you probably can point to exactly where it is. You have to go into settings and you set it. I wanted just recruiters to know. I didn't want to open it to everyone. Because I found the best jobs I've gotten, or most of the jobs I've gotten in my life, have been either through recruiters or through referrals.
Yeah. Hey, I'm really glad you brought this point up.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to know.
This is one of the first things when someone comes to me, I will say, take that off your profile.
That's like,
because
really? There's so many different opinions on it. It's so,
no.
Some people say it's great.
Nope.
I'm just curious.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, thank you, Caroline, for being so adamant about this. It is a killer, because what you're doing is you are being a supplicant. You are saying, I'm open to work. I'm sitting here waiting for the phone to ring. Please hire me.
Okay,
And you want to be perceived as someone who is active, regardless of whether you're going into work or you're getting paid right now. You are at your job. And I advise everyone, if you're out of work, the first section on your experience section needs to be a consulting shingle. You have to portray yourself as being working constantly. You're never out of work. You're never unemployed. You are in your industry. You are focusing on generating value. And that consulting shingle that you describe in your first section in the experience is that ideal job. You talk about what you want to provide for your clients, which reads employers, and you want to portray yourself as someone who is actively working in your industry, because the recruiter, if you're a recruiter, you don't want to, you'd rather steal someone from a company who's actually working. You don't want to have to deal with the question of, okay, so what happened in the last job? And, did the person get fired? Was there something wrong there? They want prime quality cuts, right? So you want to portray yourself as that person.
John, I'm sorry. I
John.
came a little late.
No worries.
So what was the no-no? I didn't.
The no-no is to have that little green open to work circle around your picture, right? Do not do that.
Yeah.
So,
No. And
thank you for bringing that up, Katie. I was thinking about that as Caroline was talking, because I want to make sure that we cover that, because I know, Caroline, I know that you wouldn't do that.
No, it's in the settings. It's not, again. And
there's two separate settings, right? Yeah. One has nothing to do with the other. The open to recruiters is a completely separate setting from the open to work graphic.
Yeah. And again, LinkedIn does not make it easy to find the settings in a lot of places. You have to fossick around or look for the help thing. I've had, fortunately, people show me, but I also want to mention, I have consulting on, and I did some small consulting jobs. So there's legitimate. So that's on my LinkedIn profile and on my resume, even though I wasn't working, because that's when I was trying to figure out if I could make art, I heard
Like
it
art, right, as a living,
like that.
right?
And honestly, that was also right after my husband had passed away in 2020. So a lot of things happened that year.
Yeah.
But so that's important. And just that setting made a lot of difference. And this was
Be open to recruiters.
the open to recruiters setting made a lot of difference. And the fact that I had all the right stuff, both in my headline, I used all 220 characters, and in the beginning of the about section. And then I also put a lot more things in the about section about my previous experience. I put my medical device experience there. I put stuff that I don't want to have dates past 15 or 20 years. I mean, I just don't. I have no dates on my education or any of that stuff. And fortunately now nobody asked you for that on your resume either.
Right.
These days.
Right. And in California, we're really locked down about that, about not asking about salary and all that stuff. So that's good. That's good. But anyway, Katie, does that help? Anything else you'd want to bring up about that?
She answered the question, and then you helped. There seems to be a lot of people that believe the open to work is, oh my gosh, you have to do it. So I like the way you explained it, John, because then it looks like you're waiting as opposed to being proactive. When you put it that way, it makes much more sense to me. But I knew that you could do the open to recruiters, but I didn't know if you still, LinkedIn seems to be changing things constantly. You almost have to be like, I don't know somebody at LinkedIn to know all the ins and outs, but that helped a lot because I mean,
it really, to me, it sets a really clear line about the whole recruiting process, the job finding process, and the whole career management process around proactivity versus passivity. And the institutions will tend to look at this from a company employer-centric position. And I think it's really important that we look at this from a candidate-centric position. What's best for the candidate? It's not about fitting yourself into a job description. It's about establishing a value proposition so that you can create parity between you and the employer. Puts you in a better position with the employer to understand if the position is right for you or not, as opposed to, I can do so many things. I want to cast this wide net and hopefully I'll catch a fish. That's the psychology of the open to work. It's like, I want to cast this extremely wide net and be very passive about it. And hopefully, fingers crossed, someone will find me and I can do the job. As opposed to, here's the job that I do best, that I want to do. Here's the value that I provide. Here's what I deliver. And it's scary because you're niching it down. You're being very specific. And as you get more experience in life and career, your tendency is to say, I can do a lot of different things. I don't want to kind of typecast myself or peg myself in one particular area. However, in the real world, the way it works is that is your superpower. So focus on that and get in the door, and the other stuff will follow. And I'm sure, Caroline, you're you're the poster child for the session today. You're going to have a lot more opportunities to unfold, as it were, a lot of the value that you provide in other areas now that you're in the door and you're in the position.
Yes, and also what was great about the position I got is they have inside sales people in other groups, but this group has never had one. So they only had a generic job description. And I knew that when every company tell me, that's just generic. I'm making it up as I go along. So I'm getting to provide value as I see it. And so far, everybody's happy with me.
Yeah. Well, I think I would say that's probably why they hired you, because they thought, there's probably a lot more here than meets the eye. And we'll probably get a great deal by bringing in someone with her experience and the fact that she's seen it from different angles. And the company clearly is in growth mode. So it's a very smart hire on their
Yeah,
part.
I mean, it's fascinating to be, it's the contrast between this and the enterprise software BD position couldn't be more huge. But, and also I got to understand the difference between a software company, which has very high profit margins because this is, again, enterprise B2B software. They have no manufacturing, they have no facilities, they have no overhead. I mean, they've just got people.
Right.
And manufacturing, where you've got all the logistics, you've got you've got, I mean, it's an entire different
Sure.
thing. And I understand, and I've worked for companies in all different groups, and it makes a huge difference. Like having enterprise software has a lot more money for marketing and stuff.
Right. Right.
You know, I'm working with several recent college grads in terms of techniques, helping them. And
John, you should explain what you do.
Okay, yes, John, thank you.
Introduce yourself.
I'm an executive coach and a licensed therapist, and I retired several years ago from corporate, but I still wanted to continue my my passion for coaching. So I'm certified in executive coaching, and one of the things that I've been doing is working with Rutgers University, and they have what they call a New Start Career Network, and it's for people 55 and over who are long-term unemployed, and it's both rewarding and very sad at the same time. This is pro bono. That said, these individuals, 55 and over, they've always viewed their job as an end in itself and not a career. And they hit 55-ish, and all of a sudden, the rug is pulled out from under them, and they don't know what to do. They're like deer in the headlights. And many of the organizations just provide some online help with searching for a job. So it's so interesting because even though they're 55 and over, they have no idea what about a value proposition, about networking. And the only thing they want is the job that they had in another company. And so it's not only giving them working with tools and techniques, but also changing that mindset that, you know, I want to do what I was doing, and that was it.
So
and
how do you work with that mindset? How do you work with the growth mindset, basically, to try to rekindle that growth mindset?
That's a good question, John. And first of all, I give them some YouTubes and reading about what is a growth mindset, what is a fixed mindset. And then, so we have a discussion based on that, you know, what is your mindset currently? And invariably it's fixed. I want what I had, and that's what I want.
And is this kind of fear-based? Do they feel like, you know, oh, I'm too old to learn, or I'm uncomfortable and I don't want to have to be uncomfortable, and I've worked too long to be uncomfortable? Are those some of the things that are going on? And
it's John, yes, it's fear, and it's deep-seated anger. How could
where's that anger
do this to me? Well, again, you know, I spent 20 years in this organization. I worked hard,
right?
And you know, I went over and above, and now I walk in one day and I don't have a job.
Right?
How dare they?
Right.
And the way it is now, it's not that they tell you and you have a week to leave. It's like, get your stuff.
Right, we're escorting you out.
Yeah, so it's hurt, anger, fear. It's almost like the grief cycle,
It
but
is.
it takes them such a long time to get
Really
over
good.
the anger.
Yeah,
It's and again, because the organization where they worked, they perceive them as well, they're my parent.
Right.
I do work, but they give
Right.
me benefits and time off and blah 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 blah.
Right. They're
And now I
behind the
don't have that.
times. We have to get fresh
Yes.
blood.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, this is
So.
a traditional HR kind of corporate mindset, which I think, by the way, and not just because I'm in this bubble, but I do believe that this is changing. And I do believe, just for what it's worth, that the demographics and the economics are in favor of extended careers, because there are more older people in the population. That is a bubble. This baby boom bubble is going to kind of keep stretching the age of the working population higher. There are fewer younger workers to replace us, and I think that the economics of this for everyone is helped by all hands on deck and having more people stay longer in jobs, or finding jobs that are perhaps better suited for people with more experience, people who are in more advisory roles, strategic roles. I mean, I think to a certain extent, if I can interpret a little bit, Caroline's job leverages her experience kind of in the field to work more internally to support a lot of this effort. And in a growth oriented company, that experience can be valuable. So I think that people are going to see this as being more strategic as time goes on. There's a really interesting book for those of you who might be interested in the subject, called The Super Age, by a guy named Bradley Sherman, and he does a demographic deep dive on the implications of a aging population around the world and all of the disruptions that are going to come as a result. And he's a big believer in this idea of keeping people in the workforce longer, and the fact that companies are starting to understand that, oh my God, this is an advantage to us to do this, to have these multi-generational teams where different perspectives and experience can come to the fore and be a great advantage.
I do want to mention one other thing about this work. I met John 3-4 years ago, and he was doing a seminar, and it was free, and I attended. I was so impressed by, when he told us, I've had 3 or 4 careers, 5 careers in my lifetime, and just so I asked him if he would come, if he would do a Zoom session for our population. And he did, and it was amazing. So
that's great.
Again, John, thank you so much. You were a tremendous help and provided expertise.
Thank you.
So I do want to acknowledge you for that and mention it.
Very sweet. Thank you. I want to get to Caroline, who had a question about the question of putting dates on resume and LinkedIn. And Caroline was talking about the fact that she's left the dates off. I tend to be a little bit more radical about this. And I'm not so radical that I say, you've got to put your dates on. But I don't think that there is I don't think you should be shy about putting dates on your resume and or LinkedIn. And I also feel that it's important to have the complete record of your work history on your LinkedIn experience section, on your resume. However, that said, your last 10 to 15 years are the relevant portions of your history. People don't really care about what happened 10 to 15 years before. And really, the last 10 to 15 years are the most relevant for what you're going to be doing now and in the future. However, I think it's important not to cut off, and people will say, oh, just trash everything before 10 to 15 years ago. No one cares about that. But I think they do. I think that they want to know and can benefit from knowing where you started, what that early experience is. You want to compress it You want to really, really shorten it to the bare minimum so that it fits in those 2 pages on the resume. And it is a more abbreviated section on LinkedIn. And there's a trick that you can use on LinkedIn to kind of accordion all of your early experience into one section. But think about it. You don't want to put yourself at a disadvantage in competing against less experienced people for the position. You don't want to just remove those 15, 20 years of experience from your life and from your career narrative, because then you're no different from someone who is 10, 15 years out of school. And I think it's important that you preserve that experience and use it as an asset. And I would say for people who are biased against you because of your age, there's nothing you're going to be able to do to hide it from them or to persuade them differently. So move on. There are plenty of people, I believe more and more people, valuing age and experience. Those are the people that you want to be targeting. Caroline, does that help?
Yes. No, I understand what you're saying. Just being here in Silicon Valley, where ageism, if you're over 40, you're, you know, it's difficult. And okay, I don't normally say this, and the people at my company don't know. I'm 70. And I look maybe 50.
Oh, you have alien genes.
Genes, that's right.
No, I also know how to deal with the controls on LinkedIn. But that helps a little bit. But the thing is, being in sales, essentially some version of that my whole career. And I highly recommend Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. It's in the 5th edition. It's over 30 years old. It's, if you want to understand what influences people, the 6 factors that really influence people, like reciprocity and association.
You are in sales.
Yeah, no. I learned Zig Ziglar and stuff. I did.
Oh my God.
I did door-to-door sales.
You're the OG.
Out of art school.
Yeah.
Hell, I learned sales. But then I got me a job into selling operating room equipment. So with a company car and the whole 9 yards. But the thing is, my sense, I'm looking at perception. That's why that open to work circle thing, people have an emotional, like NLP, neuro linguistic programming. Most of what people believe and feel is 97% in their subconscious, and they don't know they're doing it. People don't want to be ageist or biased or racist or whatever, but that's baked in. So I'm trying to put my best foot forward, and I have all my medical device history and stuff is in there. I just put it in the about section. I don't want people to first see and have some kind of psychological reaction that they're not in control of that will color them. It's like they've done all those studies with resumes where they have a woman's name or a man's name, and they and the bias is there. It's baked in.
Right. And the age also on the resumes. Right.
Exactly. Which is why when people meet me, I want them to meet me. I want them to be a little conditioned by those kinds of things first. Yeah. And so far it's worked, but I understand what you're saying.
So I misspoke. So Gretchen, that was your question about the age. Did that help?
Can't get myself off on mute.
There you go.
Yes, it did. I will say, so I'm currently employed. I had a individual that I hired about 5 years ago for a job. Great resume, brought him in for an interview, and you talk about not portraying your age on a resume. The minute you walk into that office, they are going to see your age. And I remember being surprised at the individual in front of me because the resume didn't indicate he had that much experience. Great guy, and hired him, but it was just a little odd way to start. It felt a little deceptive.
Yeah.
And that's been my only experience in dates on resumes and not quite matching up with the the person in front of me.
Yeah, you bring up the other question there about fudging your age, which is the deception question, and you just don't want to go into a situation misrepresenting yourself, because if you're misrepresenting yourself one way or the other, what else does that say about you? And I think it raises red flags. I mean, and it raised a red flag for you, which you overcame, but that's another factor that I think is really important. And when back to the advice, Katie was talking about people saying, oh, you got to put the green circle. There's a lot of supposedly expert advice about leaving your age off and trying to ignore or fudge the fact that you're older just to get in the door. But that's a short-sighted, short-term solution. You're not there to get in the door. You're there to get a job, right? And to integrate with a culture. And if that culture is not welcoming, you don't want to be there, and you don't want to try to twist yourself into knots fitting in every day and kind of putting on a mask before you walk into the office or get on Zoom. So Josephine had a question. I want to move to Josephine.
Thank you. Yeah, John, you and I have had interactions like years and years ago.
Yes.
And I got this invitation, so I'm glad to be here. And I wanted to just say a little bit about my experiences with New Start, because I started New Start Career Network, which was mentioned. I started out as, I guess, a client, and then I became one of the coaches as well. And then one of the coaches and I completed with New Start, and then we've had ongoing conversations. But, I guess my situation is a little unusual in that I'm in a line of work where almost everyone is a lot younger than I am. So, I take all of your suggestions about the dates. I only have to, excuse me, 10 years of experience on my resume, but and no dates for my education, but I do have a summary section where I have a narrative, and I like what you're saying about the open to work green label. I've always cringed when I've seen that. So but I do think that, my line of work is user experience. And as I mentioned, most people are a lot younger. But what I'm finding is that there are increasing opportunities, even with the tech implosion, for consulting and mentoring and coaching. And those things, I've been told, are not going away. So I think what I've found over time, and I'm working on designing an online course now, is that younger people, all of a sudden, maybe it's just because I'm open to it, they seem to be gravitating toward me. They see an older person and they're like, oh, we want to pick your brain. We want to know about your experience. We want your wisdom. We want you to tell us stories, dragon slaying stories. And they love it. So right. I'm wondering if you could just comment on that a little bit. How do you target those markets, position yourself in those markets? Right.
Well, I think you're kind of answering your own question, but I will say something about Gen Z, which I saw the other day, which is that Gen Z apparently, the problem that employers are having with Gen Z in the marketplace, the job marketplace currently, is that they want to be told what to do. They really want it laid out for them step by step. They want an SOP for everything, which I think is kind of interesting because I'm not so much about millennials, but Gen X was very kind of, no, we're going to do it our way. So, these things change. I find it encouraging to hear that your experience is that people are coming to you for words about your experience. And I think this, again, is something that's very important for us to be able to turn around. The old paradigm of work is that you got a good education, that entitled you to get a good job. You'd work for 40 years, you keep your nose clean and didn't get into trouble, and you could retire after 40 years with a good pension. And of course, those days are gone, right? So the new paradigm, I think, for young people, but I think it's important for us as older people to be mindful of this, is that the first stage is self-awareness, because education is lifelong. You're never going to stop learning. You're never going to stop growing and getting new skills and new perspectives. So you want to be aware of who you are first, so you can know where you fit and what you want to do and what's right for you. And then the second, let me just finish this. The second point about this is that instead of just working for 40 years and putting in the clock time, you've got to be generating, right? You've got to be delivering value. You've always got to be figuring out, where is that value that I can provide? And then the final piece of it is not retirement, it's giving back. And I think that that's the stage that many people over 50 are finding themselves in, where they have this opportunity to create. And John, this goes back to your population of people who are kind of resentful of being laid off and just want to do the same thing. They have a resource that they can share now. And this is something that I think we all can work towards, this idea of giving back and mentoring and using that strategic consultative ability that we have now, and put that as part of the value proposition that we're sharing back to what Caroline's doing. So I'm sorry, you had
I'm sorry. It's all good. I just, as a sort of to piggyback and footnote what you've said.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who never expected or got that 40-year trajectory. You talked about knowing yourself. My brother worked for 30 years at IBM. That could never have been me. That could never have been me. So yes, there's a group of people who are, resentful or reluctant, whatever, because they feel like the rug was pulled out from under them. It's understandable. And, this is 2023, and many people never had the luxury of living that dream of being in one company for 20 or 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
It's increasingly the exception. So, I can appreciate people feeling robbed or upset or whatever, but unfortunately, I can't wave the magic wand and change the reality. So yes, they need support. It's a transformational process. It is a grief process. There is a paradigm shift, and this is what's happening now. So that's, we have to get on with it.
Thank you. I agree. Giselle, how are you?
Very busy today. I joined late. I was just wondering more about the opportunity that was described a few moments ago in the conversation about mentoring. I'm finding more and more people contacting me just organically for mentoring. Like, you do, I'm starting to do this. You've done da 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 da. Can you help me? And it's inevitably, the conversation turns into some level of mentoring, depending on their budget and how relative I feel my experience is. So I was just wondering more about that, because that's something I'd really like to do more of. And I'm thinking about, I'm interested in people's ideas for like how I could do it in terms of contacting organizations where I have colleagues and sort of getting it started by offering my help. I don't know, in some way that's nominal, but then, can progress into more of a profit earning continued service.
Right. I want to throw this up to the group and get everyone
That's what I
else's
wanted to hear.
viewpoint on this. What do people think about this?
I hear mentoring and I think it's a free relationship. You're giving back, you're helping guide somebody. I haven't ever associated payment or earning money with mentoring, but that's just, that's just me.
I've done it a lot. I mean, basically it's another way of looking at it is coach mentoring. Coaching, technically speaking, you're not supposed to give advice. You're supposed to ask you're supposed to know how to guide the conversation through questions and the participants' answers in a way that leads them to achieve important understandings that are helpful to them. That's a simple way of saying it. The mentoring, people have always wanted me to mentor because they want me to recommend, to share my experiences that are relative to what they're wondering about professionally. And then to provide, yes, I always ask tons of questions, but provide answers. And that's a big investment of time, and over many weeks.
So I would just want to, from a semantic perspective, flip those definitions, because my understanding of this is that when you're talking about coaching, you're actually, you think about the athletic model, you're actually talking about creating a program or system or a methodology and helping the coachee follow that methodology to achieve a certain goal. Whereas mentoring traditionally is what you were saying about asking questions, but really promoting the mentee to find their own solutions and their own methods by, again, yes, reflecting back with your experience, but not so much proposing a specific set of solutions or pathways.
Well, I'm sure you're right, John. You're much more of an expert at this than I am, but I'm just saying, because I did a long time of inquiring on coaching, on becoming a professional coach. And as I went through the inquiry, this was brought out to me.
Right.
What I shared with you. So right.
Well, the reason I bring it up is actually back to Gretchen's point about charging, right? I mean, what can you charge for, right? And I think that goes to a semantic perception again of where is the value? Is there, do you charge for mentoring? Because there is this idea that, oh, well, mentoring is something that's done pro bono. It's this wonderful, gray-haired, joyful person giving back. Whereas coaching, you pay for a coach, right? So I just throw that out there in terms of how we are representing ourselves here going forward in something that's maybe more freelance, maybe more consultative, because that's kind of where the work is and where the value is. So just throwing that out in terms of making this, something that we can, how do we make it so we can charge for it?
Giselle, I'll play devil's advocate. What do you have, or what value would you bring to someone as a mentor? And I'm not asking you necessarily to answer it right now, but I do think, just as you're anybody in job search, it's what is my value proposition? Why would you want to hire me? Or in your case, why would you want to work with me as a mentor? What do I bring to the table that that you could take advantage of?
Mhm. Well, I mean, I could answer it, but I don't want to waste anyone's time answering it. And I have been doing it. It's me, it's sort of wanting to take it beyond being something that comes to me via, you know, a small number of referrals or just organically when somebody's working with me and they start to really value the inputs and the insights that I'm bringing to whatever our work is. And of course, for me, it really is about working for it within the world of philanthropy. So it's really about assisting people who work at nonprofits. So, and what do I bring to it? I mean, I have a lot of experience in the US and globally that that people value. So anyway, but my question was, what's everyone's ideas for getting more business with it?
Well, it sounds like folks that help other coaches get more business would be the right people to go to. And I've encountered a lot of them. Look at a website called The Ultimate Coach, which is about Steve Hardison. The people in his orbit are pretty amazing. He's a unique individual. I've had interactions with him on Zoom. He's amazing. And the book about him, not by him, about him is quite extraordinary.
What's his name again?
Steve Hardison. And the book is The Ultimate Coach. If you put in Google The Ultimate Coach, a bunch of stuff about him, but it's Steve Hardison. He's in Arizona. He's
a character.
It's all about being. He's about being present and creating. He helps people consult with him and they pay $150,000 up front and fly from God knows where because he only consults in his home.
You mean people pay him a consulting fee of $150,000
up front before the first meeting?
Okay.
So he's doing, but there's a lot of coaches in his orbit. He's the Ultimate Coach has a Facebook group. He and his wife of 44 years, Amy, she's extraordinary too. And she's completely different than him. They balance each other. But I was only bringing it up to say that there are people in his orbit. There's a guy called Steve Chandler, who Steve Hardison and Steve Chandler go back 35 years or something. He was one of his first consulting clients because Steve is he's a Mormon, so he learned to sell doing missionary work at 18. But he had a corporate career which he burnt out on, and then he ended up going into coaching. He fell into it because it was what he was meant to do. But Steve Hardison in his orbit, he teaches coaches how to have successful practices. So he has a whole series of books, and there's online, I'm on his email list for a variety of reasons. But so there are people who teach people about how to have successful coaching practices, and I recommend that because mentoring is so similar. I mean, I would think.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Josephine, you wanted to ask a question.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to chime in since people were asking. My UXPA chapter did research on whether on perceptions of coaching and mentoring, and we did find, John, what you described to be the case, that in general, people expect coaching to be something you pay for, and mentoring is something that is pro bono. So if you want to charge, you need to call it coaching, basically. I'm really appreciating all of the references and sources that people are sharing, because very much in this conversation And I still would like to know what the original, what value the original poster or speaker, I don't remember her name, in the nonprofit area. Now I'm like, I'm really curious, you know.
Well, we're about to wrap up. I'm going to try to capture all of the information from the chat and see if I can publish this along with the recording of the event so that we can keep that. And I think
I didn't have a chance to
emails.
tell people about, especially John Ragnar, he had to John Roganer,
Yeah.
about Never Search Alone, the book. And Phil Terry is an amazing guy. He's in New York City. And he creates these groups where people help each other through this process of really looking at who they are and what they want to offer and all that stuff. I actually got in one of the groups, and then I got the job right away but I still stayed with the group to help out. But he's extraordinary, and he works with top executives and stuff.
Yeah, I saw your link and I clicked it on.
Yeah,
and I'm now following him.
He does all of this pro bono. You buy the book, but
Yeah.
everything, he's created this whole organization that is just, it's amazing.
Great. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for showing up to the call today. This is great. I'll do this
Thank you,
again
John.
next month. So be alert if you want to show up and share the link with the others so they can be part of it. But I really appreciate the opportunity to bring everyone together and learned a lot and had a great time talking to you all. So thank you so much for showing up.